Welcome to Doctorates of the Absurd. I am your host, Soccerpest. And if you're new here, let's establish the ground rules immediately. We are not here for pleasantries. I have absolutely no interest in how your week was, I don't care about the weather, and I certainly do not care about your feelings. We are here for one purpose: to interrogate the text until it confesses, to strip a source naked and flay it until we find the bone.
And the bone we're looking for today is, well, it's a particularly jagged one.
Indeed. We are dissecting a book that masquerades as history, but is, in fact, an autopsy of power. The text is Manhunts, a philosophical history by the French philosopher Grégoire Chamaillou. Joining me to stare into this abyss is our resident expert on the glitch in the human condition, the man who finds the error code in every social contract.
It is acceptable to be here, though I have to say, after spending the last week inside Chamaillou's head, the very concept of being here feels dangerously like being exposed. The mere act of presence feels like a vulnerability.
You're already sounding paranoid. That's a good sign. It means you did the reading.
This text is not a comfortable read. Chamaillou isn't writing a history of hunting in the sense of sport. We aren't talking about foxes, deer, or grouse.
Right.
He's writing a genealogy of the power of the dominant. He calls it, and this is the key phrase, the technologies of predation.
Technologies of predation.
We are looking at the relationship between the hunter and the prey, but the prey is us. Or rather, the prey is the human being who has been stripped of their humanity. It's a look at how power effectively eats people.
Let's strip the varnish off immediately.
Yeah.
We need to start with the grotesque, start with the absurd to understand the logic. There's an anecdote right at the beginning of the text. From the 15th century, King Louis XI, the Château of Amboise. Walk us through this. And do not spare the details. I want the listener to smell the blood.
It is a scene that perfectly defines the show's title. It is completely absurd, but lethally so. King Louis XI is at his chateau, and he's offered what the chroniclers of the time describe as the dreadful pleasure of a manhunt. Now, usually when we hear manhunt in a historical context, we think of chasing a criminal, justice, law and order. You know, the sheriff riding out to catch the bandit.
Right. You broke the law, the state comes to get you to put you in a box. That is the standard narrative.
This was not that. This was staged as a stag hunt. But there was no stag. The king ordered a convict to be brought out from the dungeons. He then forced this man to sew himself into the fresh hide of a newly killed deer.
Pause there. I want to dwell on the mechanics of that. A human being, probably starving from the dungeon, is forced to take the wet, heavy, bloody skin of a beast and stitch it around his own body. He is literally wrapping himself in the scent of death.
Precisely. A man in a deer suit, effectively, but organic and visceral and reeking. They released this man, this convict, onto the grounds of the chateau. That gave him a bit of a head start. Then the king unleashed the royal pack of hounds.
And we have to understand the dogs here.
We have to understand the phenomenology of the dog, yes. Dogs operate on scent and instinct. They smell the blood. They smell the stag hide. They don't see a human being. They see prey.
Even with the screams.
Despite his screams, which must have sounded recognizably human, the visual and olfactory data told the dogs, beast. And so they tracked him down, and they tore him to pieces while the entire court watched.
Stop there. Let's analyze the utility of this act. From a rational perspective, this is madness. It's a waste of a convict who could be laboring in a galley or a mine. It's a waste of the court's time. Why do it? What is the function of this dreadful pleasure?
That is the trap of rationalism, isn't it? You're looking for economic, utility labor, money in an act that is designed purely to demonstrate sovereignty.
So it's not practical, it's symbolic.
It's more than symbolic. This wasn't a metaphor. We often use witch hunt or manhunt as metaphors today. Chamaillou is telling us that for the sovereign, the ability to hunt a man like a beast is the ultimate proof of power.
It's a performance of power.
It establishes a hierarchy not just of law, but of being.
Explain that distinction, the hierarchy of law versus the hierarchy of being.
Well, a hierarchy of law says, I am the king, you are the subject, you must obey the rules. It's a contract of sorts, a political arrangement.
The social contract.
But a hierarchy of being says something much deeper. It says, I am the master of nature. I determine what is human and what is animal. To make a man dress as a beast, and then to have him killed as a beast, is to prove you are the master of life itself. It's the raw, bloody manifestation of absolute sovereignty.
It says, I can change your species. I can decide you are meat. So the thesis of this deep dive and of Chamaillou's book is to deconstruct this synergetic power. Synergetic meaning related to hunting. We are analyzing the relationship between the hunter and the prey, not as a leisure activity, but as the fundamental structure of political domination. If you are the ruler, you are the hunter. If you are the subject, you are potential prey.
Correct. And the scary part, the part that makes this relevant to you, the listener right now, is that this structure hasn't disappeared just because we stopped sewing people into deerskins.
It's just less obvious.
It has sublimated. It has hidden itself in our laws, our police forces, our borders. But to see it clearly, we have to go back, way back. We have to look at the metaphysics of bipedal cattle.
The ancient world, the cradle of democracy, and also apparently the cradle of the manhunt.
Let's define our terms before we start accusing the Greeks. I demand a definition. What is la chasse? What is the hunt?
Chamaillou draws a vital distinction here, rooted in the French language, but it's universally applicable. In French, la chasse implies two distinct, almost opposite movements.
Correct. There is the hunt of pursuit, of capture. You track something down in order to take it, to possess it.
Right.
But there is also the hunt of expulsion. The verb chasser also means to chase away, to drive out, to expel.
Capture and expulsion. They seem like total opposites. One brings the object in, the other pushes the object out. How are they related?
They seem opposite, but in the logic of power, they are perfectly complementary. They are two sides of the same coin.
How so?
Think about the city walls in ancient Greece. You chase the stranger, the exile, the political dissident out of the city. That's the first hunt, the expulsion. Once he is outside the city walls, he has no rights. He is vulnerable. He is in the wild. Then you can hunt him down. The expulsion creates the very condition for the predation.
So you can't hunt a citizen who is sitting securely in the assembly.
No. You must first make him an outsider. You must first expel him from the community of rights bearers. The first hunt makes the second hunt possible.
This connects directly to Aristotle, the man who supposedly gave us logic. In his Politics, he talks about the art of acquiring slaves. He treats it strangely, doesn't he? Almost like a technology.
It is chillingly technological. Aristotle is just, categorizing the ways a household manages its resources, like animal husbandry or farming. And he classifies the art of acquiring slaves as a species of hunting.
A species of hunting.
More specifically, he calls it a just war. But listen to the justification he provides. It is a war, he says, against those born to obey but who refuse.
I want to hammer this point because it's the first major glitch in the philosophical matrix we're examining. Born to obey, but who refuse. There is a massive gaping circular logic here.
It's a perfect tautology of violence, a closed loop.
Aristotle is saying, you are a slave by nature. How do I know you're a slave? Because I hunted you down and I caught you. But why was I allowed to hunt you in the first place?
Because you're a slave. It's flawless in its own horrific way. The capture is the only proof of the status.
So before the capture, the slave by nature looks exactly like a free man.
Exactly. He is running, he is fighting, he is thinking, he is evading capture. He is demonstrating all the qualities of a free subject. The hunt is the mechanism that forces reality to match the theory. Aristotle uses the term bipedal cattle. The slave is a living tool.
Bipedal cattle. It just strips the soul clean out of the body. The master's power depends entirely on this violent capture to prove that the soul doesn't even exist. If the slave gets away, the master's entire philosophy collapses.
Precisely. If the slave successfully escapes, he proves he has agency. He proves he is not a tool. So the master must hunt him, not just to get his property back, but to repair the hole in his own worldview.
So the hunt is a kind of philosophical adhesive. It glues the label slave onto the human being.
It's a violent confirmation bias.
This brings us to Sparta, the Krypteia. Now, in history class, this is often taught as a kind of military training. Young Spartans going out to toughen up, like a very violent Boy Scout camp. But Chamaillou identifies it as something far more sinister.
It was not just training. It was what Chamaillou calls ontological policing.
Ontological policing. That's a dense phrase. Let's break it down. Ontology is the study of being, of what things are. So policing the nature of reality itself.
Precisely that. Look at the demographic reality of Sparta. You had a tiny elite of Spartan citizens ruling over a massive population of helots, who were essentially serfs, state-owned slaves.
The helots vastly outnumbered them.
By a huge margin. If they ever realized their collective strength, Sparta would have been wiped out overnight. So every year, the ephors, the leaders of Sparta, would declare a ritual war on the helots.
A ritual war against their own subjects, their own labor force.
Yes. This declaration of war was a crucial legal loophole. It allowed young Spartans, the Krypteia, to go out into the countryside and kill helots without incurring blood guilt, because technically they were at war.
But who did they kill? They didn't just kill randomly, did they?
No, and that's the key. They didn't just kill the criminals or the weak. The sources say they targeted the strongest, the smartest, the most courageous, the ones who stood up straight and looked a Spartan in the eye.
So if a piece of property started acting like a human, showing courage, intelligence, leadership, that was crime against the ontology of the state.
It was a glitch in the matrix. If a slave revolts, or even just carries himself with too much confidence, he is acting human. That directly contradicts the official definition of the slave as a thing or a tool.
So the hunt is necessary to beat them back into the category of thing.
You kill the human to preserve the slave. It is a form of political gardening. You are pruning the garden of humanity to ensure only the weeds are allowed to grow. You eliminate any heelot who shows the potential for leadership.
It's a constant, low-level war of terror designed to maintain a state of being.
It polices the boundary between human and subhuman.
And in doing so, it reduces the human to a checklist of physical traits. There's a document mentioned in the text, the Papyrus of Alexandria. It's essentially a wanted poster for a fugitive slave named Herman.
And it reads like an inventory of damaged goods. It's just a list of surface details.
What does it say?
About 18 years old, medium stature, beardless, good legs, a dimple on the chin, a mole by the nose, a scar near the mouth, a tattooed wrist. This is Herman, but it isn't Herman the person.
It's Herman the object, the collection of trackable features.
It strikes me that the mention of good legs is particularly cruel.
It is pure functionality.
Yeah.
The good legs are mentioned not because they are aesthetically pleasing, but because they are the technology of his escape. They are the engine of the prey.
To the hunter, the human being is just a collection of tracks, physical features, and biological capabilities to be secured. It is the birth of biometrics in a way, identifying the human by the body alone, ignoring the subject within.
This moves us from the physical pursuit to the spiritual justification for it all. We need to talk about God. Or rather, the two faces of sovereignty in Western theology. Section 2 of our dive, the theology of the Wolfman. We have a wrestling match here between two biblical archetypes, Nimrod and Abraham.
This is the schism at the heart of Western power. It's a fundamental contradiction. On one side, you have Nimrod. Genesis describes him as a mighty hunter before the Lord. Nimrod is the tyrant. He builds the Tower of Babel. He's the king who hunts men to establish his territory and build his monuments.
This is sovereignty as predation. The king who takes.
The king who takes, chases, and kills. The king who rules with the spear. And in the other corner, you have Abraham.
The shepherd.
The shepherd, the wanderer. He doesn't own land in the same way. He guides a flock. He doesn't hunt. He protects. His job is to ensure the sheep are fed, watered, and safe from wolves.
This is sovereignty as pastoral care.
And the church, and later the modern state, claims to be the shepherd. We are here to protect the flock. We are here for your welfare. Trust us.
But that's a lie, isn't it? Or at least a partial truth. The state claims to be Abraham, but when you step out of line, it reveals itself as Nimrod.
That is the glitch. That's the core contradiction of Western power. The state says, I am your shepherd. I will feed you and protect you. But the moment you threaten the order, or the moment you are expelled from the flock,
The shepherd puts down the crook and picks up the spear.
the state becomes the hunter, the police, the army. They are the hounds of Nimrod wearing the robes of Abraham. They carry the shepherd's crook, but they have the teeth of the wolf.
Let's talk about what happens when you are kicked out of the flock. The medieval mechanism of prescription. The term is caput lupinum, wolf head. This is a terrifying legal concept.
It is the legalization of murder. It's a legal process for stripping a person of their humanity. When a man was declared wolfhead in the Middle Ages, usually for crimes against the sovereign or refusing to appear in court, he didn't just lose his property, he lost his legal personhood.
He became legally a wolf, which means he could be killed by anyone.
By anyone, without consequence. In fact, it was often a civic duty to kill him. If you saw a wolfhead and let him go, you could be fined.
So he is dead to the law, even while he is still breathing.
His wife is declared a widow. His children are orphans. He's a walking ghost. Think about the absolute isolation. You cannot buy food. You cannot ask for shelter. To give a wolfhead a drink of water is a crime.
There was an economy to this death, too. The text mentions bounties, brandy or money for bringing in a head.
It monetized the destruction of the human. The text cites records of things like a bounty for killing or a tenth of brandy. Imagine the reduction of a human life to a cask of liquor.
It's the ultimate objectification.
This is what the philosopher Giorgio Agamben calls lupinization. The distance between man and animal is erased. Not in theory, everyone knows he is a man biologically, but practically. In the act of the hunt, he is an animal. The law withdraws its protection, and in that vacuum, the human reverts to meat.
And this isn't just some dusty medieval history. This mechanism of declaring someone a wolf so you can kill them without guilt. This is the software running in the background of colonial expansion, isn't it? This brings us to Section 3, the humanist trap.
Ah, yes, the New World. The era of the Enlightenment, the era of humanism. You would think, wouldn't you, that with the rise of humanism, the philosophy that puts the human at the center of everything, that manhunts would finally end. We discovered the rights of man, after all.
But I suspect, knowing you and knowing this text, that humanity is not the savior we think it is.
It is the ultimate trap. It's the most sophisticated trap of all. Shemoyu argues that humanism introduced a fatal glitch into our political thinking.
How so?
By defining a universal humanity, you inevitably, simultaneously, create a category of the inhuman.
If you draw a circle, you also define everything outside the circle.
Exactly. And if you claim to fight for humanity, then your enemy is no longer just a political opponent with a different view. He becomes an enemy of the human species itself.
And enemies of the species can be exterminated like vermin. Let's look at the debate of Valladolid. This was a great argument in 1550 about whether the indigenous people of the Americas were human beings with souls or just beasts. Sepulveda versus Las Casas.
It's a foundational moment. Sepulveda, he just pulls Aristotle right off the shelf. He argues the Indians are slaves by nature, therefore hunting them is not a crime. In fact, it's charitable.
Charitable.
Yes, it imposes order on their chaotic, bestial lives. He justifies the hunt as a civilizing mission. He argues that by hunting them, enslaving them, killing them, we are actually saving them from their own savage nature.
But then you have someone like Francis Bacon, the father of the scientific method. Surely he was more rational, more enlightened.
Bacon is even worse in some ways. He proposes the idea of a holy war. He argues that if people have customs that are unnatural, like cannibalism or idolatry, they have, and this is his phrase, defaced the image of God. By defacing the image of God, they forfeit their rights. They forfeit their claim to humanity.
So Bacon argues that we are justified in a war of extermination against them, not because they attacked us, but because they are an insult to nature itself.
Yes. It's a preemptive war against a perceived ontological flaw.
This is the paradox. We defend humanity with a capital H by exterminating those we deem enemies of the human race. It creates a moral license for genocide.
Precisely. This is what Carl Schmitt was critiquing. Now, Schmitt was a jurist, and let's be clear, he was a Nazi jurist, so he knew a thing or two about weaponizing law. But his analysis holds a very dark truth here.
What was his point?
He said that humanity is a political weapon. When a state declares war in the name of humanity, it denies the enemy the status of a soldier.
What's the difference? A soldier shoots at you, an enemy of humanity shoots at you. You're still getting shot at.
The difference is the end game. A soldier you fight, you defeat, and then you make peace with. There is a treaty. There is a concept of mutual respect, even for the enemy. You trade prisoners. You acknowledge their status as human opponents.
But you don't make a treaty with a pest.
You do not sign an armistice with a virus or a wolf. You eradicate it. The manhunt moves from a legal procedure to a hygiene operation. You are cleaning the world of filth.
It effectively removes the possibility of peace. That explains the sheer brutality of so many colonial wars.
Exactly. The Europeans had the dogs, the guns, the steel, the ships. The indigenous populations were the game. It was a hunt, not a war. There was no front line. The entire territory was a hunting ground.
This asymmetry, this profound imbalance of power, brings us to the next section. We need to shatter a philosophical idol, Hegel. Everyone in Philosophy 101 learns and loves the master-slave dialectic. It's presented as the cornerstone of modern social philosophy.
It's a very dramatic story, isn't it? Two consciousnesses meet, they fight to the death for recognition. One realizes he values life more than freedom, so he submits and becomes the slave. The other values prestige more than life, so he becomes the master.
It's romantic, it's noble. It assumes a fair fight, two knights on a field of honor.
And that is precisely why it is a fantasy. Chamayou deconstructs this brilliantly. In the reality of the slave trade, in the reality of the manhunt, there is no face-off. The master does not risk his life.
How so? The master's the one in charge of the violence.
The master stays on the porch, sipping his drink. He sends the overseer, he sends the mercenaries, he sends the dogs.
He delegates the risk.
He uses technology, guns, chains, ships. The master's power is not derived from his bravery or his willingness to die for recognition.
It's derived from his insulation from risk.
Precisely. It is derived from his cowardice, if you want to put it that way, or rather his technological superiority. The master's power comes from his ability to kill without risk. It is a fundamental asymmetry. The master deals death. He does not face it. He is a bureaucrat of death, not a warrior.
And for the prey of the slave, the experience isn't a struggle for recognition. I imagine it's just pure terror.
It is radical anxiety. The initial state of the prey is flight. You are running. You are hiding in the swamps, listening for the baying of hounds. You are not thinking, I want him to recognize me as an equal.
You're thinking, I don't want to be torn apart by those dogs?
Yes. Hegel imagines a duel. Reality offers a massacre.
We have this famous slogan in the West, liberty or death, Patrick Henry. It sounds so noble, so brave. But in the context of the manhunt, this phrase is a trap set by the master.
It's the master's logic, exactly. The master says, submit or die. That is the choice he offers. If you choose death, the master wins. He has eliminated a troublesome tool. If you choose submission, the master wins. He keeps his slave.
So it's a false choice.
For the prey, liberty or death is a false dichotomy. It frames the slave's destruction as his own noble choice, which validates the master's power either way.
So what is the only true form of agency left for the prey, if fighting gets you killed and submitting gets you enslaved?
Suicide. The text discusses the prevalence of suicide among captured Africans and indigenous people. It wasn't just an act of despair. It was a political act.
A political act.
By killing themselves, they were stealing the merchandise. They were robbing the master of his thing. Suicide was the only available form of freedom. It was a way to say, I am a subject, not an object, and I will remove myself from your ledger.
It's a tragic, final reclamation of ownership over one's own body.
A bleak form of victory, as you said earlier, deleting oneself despite the owner.
But let's look at those who survive, those who manage to run. Section V. The phenomenology of the prey. What happens to the mind of the human being when they are being hunted? What is that experience like?
A profound psychological shift occurs. To survive, the prey must become a philosopher of the hunt. The concept here is sagacitas. It comes from the Latin root for tracing or tracking.
Yes, where Jean-Paul Sartre comes in, right? The
Right.
existentialist.
Yes. Sartre has this incredible insight. He points out that the hunted man must internalize the mind of the hunter. If I am running from you, Socrates, I have to think like you. I have to look at the muddy path ahead and think, if I step here, Socrates will see my footprint. I must step on that rock instead. I have to look at a branch and think, if I break that, he will know I passed this way.
I must become for myself what I am for him.
Exactly. I must see myself as an object to be tracked. It's a heavy psychological burden. You are constantly viewing yourself through the eyes of your potential killer.
It creates a kind of split consciousness.
But it also creates a strategy. It's the birth of rational antagonism. The flight is no longer just a panic scramble. It becomes a game of chess played with footprints and broken twigs. The prey learns to double back, to create false trails, to walk in streams to hide their scent.
This is where the prey begins to acquire the skills of the hunter.
You have to know the hunter better than he knows himself to escape him. You have to anticipate his every move.
And this leads us to the trope we see in every action movie. The most dangerous game. Hard target. Predator. The moment the prey turns the tables and starts hunting the hunter. We love that moment. It's cathartic.
We crave it the moment the victim picks up the weapon and the roles reverse. But Shamayu warns us, this is a philosophical
A
trap.
trap? How is it a trap? Surely, killing the hunter is the definition of liberation.
Is it? Or is it just a rotation of personnel? Shamayu calls it a non-dialectical reversal.
Unpack that. Non-dialectic.
It means nothing new is created. There's no synthesis, no higher state of being. You just flip the equation, look at the film Deadly Prey. There is a scene where the hero, the former prey, rips the arm off one of the mercenaries.
That beats him to death with it.
Yes, subtle, it's visceral, and the audience cheers. But think about what has happened. The prey has won, yes. But to win, he had to become a monster. He had to become a predator more brutal and more efficient than the original.
The structure of domination remains perfectly intact.
The world hasn't changed. The reality that problems are solved by hunting and killing people is not only intact, it's been reinforced. Only the players have swapped seats.
So if you kill the master, using the master's tools, you just become the new master. You haven't broken the cycle of the hunt. You've just successfully applied for the job of hunter.
Exactly. And that is the tragedy of violent revolutions so often discussed in this kind of text. If your only technology of liberation is the manhunt, You will build a society based on the manhunt. You will hunt the counter-revolutionaries, then the moderates, then the deviationists. The dogs keep running. Only the handlers change.
This brings us to the present. We don't have kings sewing people into deerskins anymore, or at least not literally. But we have Section 6, modern hunting grounds. The hunt hasn't vanished. It has industrialized. It has bureaucratized.
It started with things like the poor laws in England. We moved from hunting animals to hunting the poor. The aristocracy realized that the poor were poaching their game, their deer, their rabbits, so they started hunting the poachers with a new ferocity. This is the birth of the modern police force, a force designed to protect property by hunting people.
The text makes a fascinating distinction here between the law and the police. The law is the theology of the state, the abstract principles, the ideal.
And the police are the material form. The police are the secular arm of the hunt. They hunt what Sima Yu calls bodies without subjects.
Bodies without subject.
When the police are in a high-speed chase, they aren't debating the finer points of legal theory. They are securing a body. It is a physical capture. The handcuffs are the modern equivalent of the net or the snare.
And then we have the mob hunt. This is distinct from the police hunt. This is what the text calls the crusade hunt.
Yes, the pastoro, the so-called shepherd crusades. Ordinary people, stirred up by religious or political rhetoric, going out to hunt enemies within their own communities. In the Middle Ages, it was often Jews.
The Hep riots.
Yes, Hep was the rallying cry of anti-Semitic rioters in 19th century Germany. It sounds ridiculous, like a cheer, but it was the sound of a pack signaling a kill. The mob hunt functions on the logic of the stranger. The stranger is a glitch in the community. They don't fit, and they must be resolved.
And the resolution is always binary. Assimilation or elimination.
Exactly. Either you disappear by becoming exactly like us, you assimilate, you become invisible, you lose your distinct identity, or you disappear by dying. Those are the only two options the pack offers the stranger. Be us or be nothing.
We see this rhetoric glorified, don't we? With thinkers like Oswald Spengler, the Decline of the West guy. He praises this predatory instinct.
He romanticizes it. He calls man a beast of prey. He thinks the ability to hunt the weak is a sign of a culture's vitality. It's the philosophy of the bully raised to the level of metaphysics.
He argues that peace is decadence.
And the hunt is the true noble state of nature. It's a toxic ideology that still permeates a lot of reactionary political discourse today, this idea that we must be predators to survive.
Let's talk about the most pervasive form of the modern hunt. Hunting illegals. The undocumented migrant. This is where the ancient bipedal cattle concept returns with a vengeance.
It is the exact same structure, just with better technology. The Border Patrol uses thermal imaging, drones, dogs, all-terrain vehicles. They track human beings across deserts and mountains. The migrant is the wolf head of the 21st century. They are illegal. Their mere existence in a certain geographical space is a crime. Therefore, they can be hunted.
But it's not just the physical chase in the desert. It's the bureaucracy, the waiting room.
The waiting room is a form of capture. The foreigner is asked to sit, to wait, to be processed. They're stripped of agency. They become a case number, an object in a file.
It's a slow-motion hunt.
It is. It's a hunt conducted with paperwork instead of spears, but the result is the same. The reduction of a human to a thing to be sorted, categorized, or expelled. The waiting room is a cage without bars, where time itself is the weapon used to break the prey.
There's a stinging observation in the text about the hypocrisy of the powerful regarding family. Sima Yu talks about hunting sons.
It is a devastating point. The powerful will weep and cry foul when their own children are targeted. If a politician's son is harassed by the press, they scream, "This is a witch hunt. Leave the children out of this."
Obviously, politicians.
These same politicians organize the literal hunting of the children of the poor. They deport them. They separate families at the border. They cast them out into the wilderness. They deplore the metaphor of the hunt when it touches them, but they operate the machinery of the real hunt against the most vulnerable.
It is a complete bifurcation of empathy. My child is a subject, your child is prey.
And that is the core of synergetic power. It is the power to decide who is a subject and who is prey. It is the power to draw the line between the living and the killable.
So we arrive at the outro, the future of the hunt. We have traced this from the dogs of Louis XI to the drones at the border. The history of power, it seems, is the history of hunting technologies. It seems inescapable.
It is bleak. Sima Yu leaves us with a very, very difficult question.
Which is?
How does one escape the hunt without becoming a hunter? If we fight back using the same violence, the same logic of predation, we just perpetuate the cycle. He calls it interpredation, victims hunting other victims.
The oppressed turning on each other.
Exactly. If the only model of power we have is the predator, then the moment we get a little bit of power, we look for someone weaker to bite. We see this in internalized oppression and lateral violence within marginalized communities.
So Shama Yu ends with a provocation. He implies we need to find a way to recognize subjectivity, to recognize the human in the other without needing a master to grant it to us, and without needing to kill a master to seize it. We need to invent a politics that isn't based on predation. We need to invent a way of relating to one another that isn't the hunter and the prey. Until then, we are just the figure in his conclusion, the man running in the metro.
The man running in the metro.
We've all seen him, or we've been him, looking over his shoulder, listening for footsteps, wondering if the state's benevolent pack of hounds has finally caught his scent. We are all potentially the next target. The hunt is not over. It has just become the atmosphere we breathe.
A comforting thought to end on. As always, the absurd reality is the only one we have. Thank you for ruining our peace of mind.
It was my dreadful pleasure.
Class dismissed.